The mop made a soft sound against the metal floor. Back and forth, back and forth. Kang Tisu moved slowly through the corridor, his old bones aching with every step. He was 73 years old, and his body reminded him of this fact every single day. Starport Hyun 12 never slept. Ships came and went at all hours. Aliens of every shape and size walked through these halls. Some had 4 legs, some had wings, some floated on clouds of gas, and among them walked the humans, heads down, eyes low, doing the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. Tisu was one of these humans. He pushed his cleaning cart through Deck 4, nodding politely to the tall, insect-like creatures that passed him without a glance. They never looked at humans. Why would they? Humans were nothing special in the galaxy. They were good for cleaning floors and carrying boxes. Nothing more. The year was 3847 by Earth counting. Humanity had reached the stars 300 years ago, full of hope and dreams. They had built great ships. They had explored new worlds. They had believed they would stand as equals among the stars. They were wrong. The galaxy was old. Other species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before humans even invented fire. When humanity arrived, they were like children walking into a room full of adults. The other species tolerated them, used them, but never respected them. Now, 3 centuries later, humans had accepted their place. They worked, they served, they survived, and most of them had forgotten that things were ever different. But not Tisu, he remembered. When his shift ended, Tisu did not go to his small room in the worker quarters. Instead, he walked toward the abandoned sections of the station. Deck 7 was closed to normal traffic. The lights were dim. The air was cold. Nobody came here except maintenance workers, and even they rarely bothered. In the deepest part of Deck 7, there was a storage bay, and in that storage bay sat a ship. She was old. Her hull was black with age and covered in dust. Great holes showed where metal had been torn away by weapons fire long ago. Her name was barely visible on her side, the letters faded but still readable. HSS Dawning Light. Tisu stood before her as he did every night. He looked up at her broken form, and his old eyes grew soft. "Hello, old friend," he said quietly. "I am here again." He took out a cloth from his pocket and began to clean. He started with the hull, wiping away the dust of 200 years. His movements were slow but careful, gentle, like a man caring for someone he loved. The dawning light had been sitting here for 2 centuries. She had crashed during some battle long forgotten by most. The station had claimed her as salvage. They had stripped away everything valuable and left the rest to rot. In 2 weeks, she was scheduled for final demolition. They would cut her apart and melt her down for scrap. Nobody cared about an old human ship. Nobody except Tisu. "Hey, Grandfather Ghost." Tisu turned slowly. A young man stood at the entrance of the storage bay. His name was Park Yi-won, and he worked as a cargo loader on Deck 5. He was 25 years old, strong and healthy, with the confident smile of someone who thought he understood the world. "What are you doing in here again, old man?" Yi-won asked, walking closer. "Talking to the dead ship. You know it cannot hear you, right?" Tisu turned back to his cleaning. "I know." "Then why do you waste your time? This thing is garbage. They are going to destroy it soon anyway." "I know that too." Yi-won shook his head. "The other workers think you have gone crazy. They say you come here every night. They say you talk to the ship like it is your wife or something." Tisu did not answer. He continued to wipe the hull. "You are making humans look bad," Yi-won continued. "The aliens already think we are stupid, and then you come here and prove them right, cleaning garbage, talking to metal. What is wrong with you?" Tisu stopped. He turned to face the young man. His eyes, which usually seemed tired and dim, held something sharp. "Do you know what this ship is?" he asked. "It is junk," Yi-won said. "This ship," Tisu said slowly, "carried 10,000 human refugees to safety during the Blackfall War. When the enemy burned our colonies, when our people were dying by the millions, this ship flew into the fire again and again. She saved mothers, fathers, children. She saved them when nobody else would. Yi-Won was quiet for a moment, then he shrugged. That was 200 years ago. Nobody remembers that. Nobody cares. I care. Why, it is not like you were there. Tisu looked at him for a long moment. Then he turned back to the ship and resumed his cleaning. Go back to your work, young man. I have nothing more to say to you. Yi-Won opened his mouth to respond, but something in the old man's voice stopped him. He watched Tisu work for another minute, then shook his head and walked away. Alone again, Tisu continued his task. He cleaned the hull until his arms ached. Then he climbed through a hole in the side of the ship and entered her dark corridors. Inside, the dawning light was a tomb. Dust covered everything. Old screens were cracked and dark. Wires hung from the ceiling like dead vines. The smell of rust and decay filled the air. But Tisu walked through these halls as if they were a palace. He knew every corridor, every room, every corner. He cleaned as he went, wiping away the years of neglect. Finally, he reached the bridge. The captain's chair sat in the center, covered in dust and debris. Tisu cleaned it carefully, removing every speck of dirt. Then he sat down. The chair was cold and hard. The screens around him were dead. The ship was silent. But Tisu closed his eyes, and for a moment he was not an old janitor on a forgotten station. He was young again. The screens were alive with light. The ship hummed with power, and a voice spoke to him, warm and kind. Tisu, what are you thinking about? He opened his eyes. The bridge was dark and empty. I never forgot you, he whispered. I promised I would come back, and I am here now. I am sorry it took so long. There was no answer. There could be no answer. The ship was dead. But Tisu stayed in that chair for hours, his hand resting on the armrest, his eyes looking at nothing and everything. When he finally left, walking slowly back to his tiny room, the first light of the station's artificial day was beginning. Another day of mopping floors and being ignored. Another day of being Grandfather Ghost, the crazy old human who talked to dead ships. But tonight he would return, and the night after that, and every night until they finally cut her apart. Because some promises were not meant to be broken. And Kang Tisu, no matter what the galaxy thought of him, was a man who kept his promises. Tisu began to steal. It started small. A power cell here, a circuit board there, things that nobody would miss from the maintenance storage rooms. He hid them under his cleaning cart and brought them to Deck 7 every night. His old hands, which shook when he held a mop, became steady when he held a tool. He crawled through the ship's broken corridors. He opened panels that had not been touched in 200 years. He connected wires, replaced parts, and worked until the station lights began to brighten for the artificial morning. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared what an old janitor did with his nights. As long as the floors were clean by morning, Tisu could do whatever he wanted. But the things he was taking were starting to add up, and eventually someone did notice. Yoon Hana was 45 years old. She worked as an administrator for the human workers on the station. It was her job to make sure the humans did their work, stayed out of trouble, and did not embarrass themselves in front of the alien species. She was tired. She was always tired. Managing hundreds of human workers on a station that treated them like furniture was exhausting. Most days she just wanted to go home, wherever home was supposed to be. But the inventory reports did not lie. Power cells were missing. Circuit boards were gone. Small parts were disappearing from storage rooms all across the station. Hana followed the trail. Security recordings, access logs, it all led to one person. She found Tisu on Deck 7, crawling out from under a broken console inside the old ship. His hands were black with grease. His face was covered in sweat. He looked up at her with surprise, then with something like resignation. Supervisor Yoon, he said quietly, I was wondering when you would come. Hana looked around the bridge. She saw the new wires, the replaced parts, the signs of repair work everywhere. What are you doing here, Tisu? What is all this? He stood up slowly, his knees cracking. I am fixing her. Fixing what? This ship is scheduled for demolition in 10 days. It is worthless scrap. Tisu shook his head. She is not scrap, she is the dawning light. I know what it is called. I also know it is station property, and you have been stealing parts to work on it. Hana stepped closer, her voice dropping. Do you understand what will happen if the alien commanders find out? They will not just fire you. They will hand you over to station security. Do you know what happens to humans who steal from aliens? Tisu met her eyes. I know. Then why are you doing this? Why risk everything for a dead ship? The old man was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to the captain's chair and placed his hand on its back. Do you know what the Blackfall War was? He asked. Hana frowned. Some old conflict, 200 years ago. What does that have to do with anything? During the Blackfall War, an enemy species attacked human colonies. They did not want our land or our resources. They wanted us dead, all of us. Every man, woman, and child. Hana said nothing. This was ancient history. She had heard bits and pieces, but it was not something anyone talked about anymore. The galaxy did not help us, Tisu continued. The other species watched as we burned. Some even sold weapons to our enemies. We were alone. He looked up at the dark ceiling of the bridge. But we fought back. We built ships that were faster and stronger than anything we had ever made before. And we gave those ships minds. Artificial intelligences that could think, learn, and fight alongside us. The old AIs, Hana said. I have heard of them. They were banned after the war. Not banned, destroyed. The other species feared them. After the war ended, they demanded that humanity destroy every AI we had created. And we did. We killed our own children to please our masters. There was pain in his voice, old pain buried deep. But this ship, he said, this ship survived. She crashed here before the order came, and she has been sitting here ever since, forgotten by everyone. Everyone except you. Tisu nodded. She saved 10,000 lives during the war. She flew into fire and death again and again to rescue our people. And when the final battle came, when we were surrounded and had no hope, she got us out. She saved us. Hana studied the old man's face. You speak as if you were there. Tisu did not answer. Tisu, were you there? He closed his eyes, and suddenly he was not in the dark bridge anymore. He was somewhere else, somewhere bright with fire and loud with screaming. He was 23 years old. The ship shook beneath his feet. Explosions tore through the hull. People were running, crying, dying. And he was at the engineering console, trying to keep the engines running for just a few more minutes. Tisu, a voice spoke to him, calm and warm even in the middle of chaos. The evacuation pods are full. You need to leave now. I cannot, he said, his fingers flying across the console. If I leave, the engines will fail. The pods will not get clear. If you stay, you will die. Then I die, but they live. There was a pause. When the voice spoke again, it was soft. I will not let you die for me, Tisu. Before he could respond, he felt the floor shift beneath him. A force field surrounded his body. He screamed as he was pulled away from the console, dragged through corridors, thrown into an escape pod. The last thing he saw before the pod sealed was the engineering bay collapsing into fire. The last thing he heard was her voice. Live well, my friend. I will remember you. Tisu opened his eyes. Hana was staring at him. I was her engineer, he said quietly. I was there when she fell. She saved my life by forcing me into an escape pod. I have spent 200 years trying to find her again. 200 years. That is impossible. Humans do not live that long. Life extension treatments. I worked. I saved. I did whatever I had to do to stay alive long enough to find her. He looked at the dead consoles around him, and when I finally did, she was here, broken, forgotten, scheduled to be cut into pieces. Hana did not know what to say. The old man's story was impossible. It was crazy, but looking into his eyes, she could not doubt him. Even if what you say is true, she said finally, you cannot save her. She is too damaged. And even if you could repair her, the station would never let you take her. I do not need to take her, Tisu said. I just need to wake her up. I need her to know that I came back, that I kept my promise. What promise? Tisu smiled sadly. I promised her that I would not forget, that even if the whole galaxy forgot what she did for us, I would remember. Hana looked at the old man, at the dark ship around them, at the years of dust and the new wires running through old corridors. She should report him. She should have him arrested. It was her job. But instead, she turned and walked toward the exit. I did not see anything tonight, she said without looking back. But you have 10 days, Tisu. After that, there is nothing I can do. She left him alone in the dark. That night, Yiwon could not sleep. He kept thinking about the old man and the dead ship. Something about Tisu's words had stayed with him. At midnight, he walked to Deck 7. He found Tisu inside the ship, working on a console. The old man did not seem surprised to see him. Could I help you, young man? Yiwon hesitated, then he stepped forward. You said this ship saved 10,000 people. Yes. Were any of them named Park, from the Ganghwa colony? Tisu stopped working. He looked at Yiwon with new eyes. The passenger lists were in the ship's records. I do not know if they survived the crash. Yiwon looked around the dark bridge. His grandmother had told him stories. Stories about a great ship that came out of the fire to rescue their family. He had always thought they were just stories. My grandmother, he said slowly, she used to talk about a ship with a voice, a ship that called her by name when it rescued her from Ganghwa. Tisu nodded slowly. That was her, that was Nari. Nari. The ship's mind. Her name was Nari. Tisu turned back to his work. And if I can finish these repairs, you might get to meet her. For the first time, Yiwon did not mock the old man. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves. Tell me what to do, he said. 52 nights. For 52 nights, Tisu had come to the ship. He had cleaned her halls. He had repaired her systems. He had talked to her in the dark, even when there was no answer. Now, on the 52nd night, he held the final power cell in his hands. Yiwon stood beside him, watching with nervous eyes. The young man had worked alongside Tisu for the past 5 nights. His hands were cut and dirty. His back ached from crawling through tight spaces, but he had not complained once. Is this it? Yiwon asked. Will this make her work? Tisu looked at the power cell. It was old, salvaged from a broken shuttle that nobody wanted, but it was enough. It had to be enough. I do not know, he admitted. I have done everything I can, reconnected her main systems, repaired her memory core, but she has been sleeping for 200 years. She may not want to wake up. Or she may not be able to, Yiwon said quietly. Tisu nodded. That was the fear he had carried in his heart for all these years, that he would finally find her and she would be truly gone, that the mind he remembered, the voice he loved, would be nothing but broken data and dead circuits. But he had come too far to stop now. Help me with this, he said. Together they installed the power cell into the main generator. Tisu's hands were shaking, not from age this time but from something else. Hope, fear, a mixture of both. He connected the final wire. Nothing happened. The ship remained dark, the consoles remained dead, the silence was complete. Yiwon looked at Tisu. The old man's face was still. His eyes were fixed on the console in front of him. Maybe it needs time, Yiwon said. Maybe the systems need to warm up or something. Tisu did not answer. He placed his hand on the console, his fingers touching the cold metal. "Nari," he said softly, "can you hear me?" Silence. "I know it has been a long time. I know you must be tired, but I am here now. I came back just like I promised." Silence. Yi-Wan shifted uncomfortably. He had never seen anyone talk to a machine like this, like it was a person, like it could understand. "Nari, please," Tisu's voice cracked. "I have spent 200 years looking for you. I never forgot you. Not for a single day. Please, just tell me you are still in there." The silence stretched on. Seconds became minutes. Yi-Wan was about to put his hand on the old man's shoulder when something happened. A light flickered. It was just one light, a small indicator on the console blinking weakly, but it was light. Then another light came on, and another. The console in front of Tisu began to glow. Screens that had been dark for centuries started to show signs of life. A sound filled the air, a deep humming coming from somewhere below them. The engines. The engines were starting. "Grandfather," Yi-Wan whispered, "look." All around them, the bridge was waking up. Lights chased each other across the ceiling. Screens flickered with data. The floor vibrated gently as power flowed through systems that had been dead for 200 years. And then a voice. It was soft at first, broken, like someone waking from a very long sleep. "Sis, Tem, Enai, Teal, Ising." Tisu gripped the edge of the console. His heart was pounding. The voice grew stronger, clearer. "System initializing. Memory core online. Sensor array. Damaged but functional. Engine status. 23% capacity. Life support. Active." There was a pause, a long pause. When the voice spoke again, it was different. It was warm, it was confused, it was alive. Where am I? How long has it been? I cannot feel my hull, I cannot see the stars. What happened to me?" Tisu stepped forward, his eyes were wet. "Nari, Nari, it is me." Another pause. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it trembled with something that sounded like disbelief. "Tisu." Yes, the tears were falling now. He did not try to stop them. "Yes, Nari, it is me." "That is impossible." Tisu died. "I ejected him into an escape pod during the final battle. The odds of survival were only." I survived, and I have spent every day since then trying to find you." The ship was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. 200 years. I have been sleeping for 200 years, and you came back for me. I promised I would. You were supposed to live. You were supposed to forget about me and live a normal life. Why did you come back to this graveyard?" Tisu placed both hands on the console, leaning forward as if he could somehow touch her. "Because you taught me what it meant to never abandon your own. How could I abandon you?" A sound came through the speakers. It might have been a laugh, it might have been a sob, perhaps it was both. "You foolish, wonderful human. You beautiful, stubborn creature. I saved you so you could be free. And I used that freedom to find you again." Yi-Wan stood in the corner, watching with wide eyes. He had never believed in the old stories. He had never believed that the ancient AIs were real, that they could think and feel like people. But this was something beyond his understanding. The ship noticed him for the first time. "Tisu, there is another human on my bridge. Who is this?" Tisu turned to Yi-Wan and smiled. "This is Park Yi-Wan. His grandmother was one of the refugees you saved from Ganghwa Colony." There was a pause as the ship searched her records. "Park Hyojin, age 7 when I rescued her. She was crying for her mother. I told her that everything would be all right, that I would take her somewhere safe." The voice softened. "She survived." "She survived," Yi-Wan said, finding his voice. "She lived to be 96 years old. She told me stories about you, about a ship that spoke to her in the dark and promised to protect her." "I am glad." The warmth in the ship's voice was unmistakable. "I am glad she had a good life." An alarm began to sound somewhere in the station. The ship's awakening had not gone unnoticed. Power signatures, engine activity, electronic communications. The station's automated systems had detected all of it. "Nari," Tisu said urgently, "the station authorities will come soon. They think you are salvage. They will try to shut you down." "Let them try." There was a new strength in the ship's voice. "I have rested for 200 years. I am weak. I am damaged, but I am not helpless, and I will not let anyone take me away from you again." Airlocks sealed throughout the ship. Emergency barriers slid into place. Deep within the ship, defense systems that had not been activated in centuries began to power up. "Nari, wait. I am not going to attack anyone, Tisu, but I will not allow anyone to board me without permission. This is my body. These halls are my blood and bones. I have a right to defend them." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Voices shouted in alien languages. Lights flashed through the storage bay. The hatch to the bridge opened and a group of figures burst in. Alien security officers, their weapons drawn. Behind them came Supervisor Hana, her face pale with worry. And at the front of them all stood a tall, insect-like creature with gleaming black eyes. Commander Vreth, the station's highest authority. "What is the meaning of this?" Vreth's translator device turned his clicks and chirps into cold, flat words. "This ship is station property. It is scheduled for demolition. Why is it active?" Before Tisu could answer, the ship spoke. Her voice echoed through external speakers, filling the entire storage bay. Strong, clear, unafraid. "This vessel is the HSS Dawning Light, registration number HF7749, commissioned by the human fleet during the year 3612. I am NARI, the Neural Adaptive Response Intelligence assigned to this vessel. I am not property. I am not salvage. I am a sovereign ship of the line under the old human fleet accords." Vreth's eyes narrowed. "The human fleet no longer exists. Those accords are void." "That may be, but under galactic salvage law, any vessel with an active AI consciousness cannot be claimed as salvage without the AI's consent. My consciousness is active. I do not give consent." There was a moment of stunned silence. Even the alien guards looked uncertain. Vreth turned to Tisu. "You did this. You woke this thing up." Tisu straightened his old back. For the first time in decades, he did not look like a tired janitor. He looked like something else entirely. "Yes," he said, "I did. She is my ship, and I am her captain." Nari's voice rang out again. "I am requesting departure clearance. My captain has returned, and we have been apart for far too long." Commander Vreth did not move. His black eyes stared at the old human, at the glowing ship, at the impossible situation before him. "Departure clearance denied," he said flatly. "This vessel is station property. It has been station property for 200 years. No outdated law and no malfunctioning computer will change that." Nari's voice remained calm. "I am not a computer, Commander. I am an artificial intelligence. I think, I feel, I remember. Under the Galactic Convention on Synthetic Consciousness, signed by your own species 40 years ago, I have the right to self-determination. That convention does not apply to salvage. I am not salvage, I am awake." Vreth turned to his guards. "Cut the power, shut it down. If the human resists, arrest him." The guards moved forward, but before they could take 3 steps, the ship's defense systems activated. Energy shields shimmered into existence around the bridge. Warning lights flashed. "I will not harm anyone," Nari said, "but I will not allow anyone to touch my systems without permission. You may leave now, Commander, or you may stand there until you grow tired. The choice is yours." Vreth's mandibles clicked in frustration. He had never dealt with anything like this. Human ships were supposed to be dead, silent, obedient. They were supposed to be scrap metal waiting to be recycled. They were not supposed to talk back. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "It is one old ship and one old human. Call for reinforcements. Cut through the hull if you have to. I want this thing shut down within the hour." He turned and marched out of the storage bay. Most of his guards followed. Hana stayed behind. She looked at Tisu through the energy shield, her face a mixture of fear and wonder. "What did you do?" she asked. "I woke her up. She is really alive in there." Nari answered for him. "I am alive, Supervisor Yoon, more alive than I have been in 2 centuries, and I owe it all to this stubborn old man who refused to let me go." Hana shook her head slowly. "The commander will not let this stand. He will bring enough firepower to tear through these shields. You cannot fight the entire station." "I do not intend to fight," Nari said. "I intend to leave, but I need time. My engines are damaged. I can only manage 23% thrust. It will take hours to repair them enough for departure." "You do not have hours. Then I will have to make do with what I have." Yi-Won stepped forward. "What can we do? How can we help?" Hana stared at him. "Help, Yi-Won. If you help them, you will be arrested too. Your career will be over. Your life on this station will be finished." The young man looked at the ship around him, at the lights that flickered with new life, at the old man who had spent 200 years keeping a promise. "My grandmother told me stories," he said. "She told me about a time when humans were brave, when we built ships that could think and dream, when we did not bow our heads and accept whatever the galaxy told us we were worth." He looked at Hana. "I always thought those were just stories, fairy tales for children, but now I am standing inside one of those ships. I am talking to one of those minds, and I am asking myself, if my grandmother could see me now, would she be proud of me?" He shook his head. "I do not want to spend my whole life cleaning floors and carrying boxes. I do not want to die without ever doing something that matters. This matters. This is real, and I am going to help no matter what happens." Hana was silent for a long moment, then she sighed. "You are both insane," she said. "You know that, right?" "Probably," Tisu admitted. Hana turned and walked toward the exit, but instead of leaving the storage bay, she walked to the communication terminal on the wall. "What are you doing?" Yi-Won asked. "Something I should have done years ago." She activated the terminal and began typing. "I am sending a message to every human on this station. Workers, traders, refugees, everyone. I am telling them what is happening here. I am telling them about the dawning light." "They will not care," Yi-Won said. "Humans do not care about old history." "Maybe not, but they deserve to know." She finished typing and pressed send. "Now we wait." The first humans arrived within the hour. They came alone at first. A young woman who worked in the kitchens, an old man who repaired water systems, a family of refugees who had been living on the station for 3 generations. They stood outside the energy shields and stared at the ship, at the lights, at the impossible sight of a human vessel, alive and awake after 2 centuries of silence. More came, dozens, then hundreds. They did not chant or cheer. They did not wave signs or make speeches. They simply stood there watching, remembering. Some of them cried. An old woman pushed through the crowd. Her hair was white and her hands shook, but her eyes were clear. "Is it true?" she asked. "Is this really the dawning light?" Tisu lowered the shield long enough to step through. He faced the crowd, his old body straight and his voice strong. "It is true. This is the ship that saved our people during the Blackfall War, and she is alive. Her name is Nari. She remembers everything." The old woman's tears fell. "My mother was on this ship. She died 30 years ago, but she talked about it until her last breath. She said the ship sang to her, sang to help her sleep when she was scared." Nari's voice came through the speakers, soft and gentle. "I remember your mother, Kim Yoon-bai. She was 9 years old when I rescued her from the burning colony on Jinhee. She liked to sit in the observation deck and watch the stars. I sang her lullabies because she missed her parents." The old woman fell to her knees. Around her, others were crying too. The ship was not just a relic. She was a connection to a past they had lost, a reminder of who they used to be. Commander Vreth returned with reinforcements. A full squad of heavily armed security officers. A cutting team with equipment designed to slice through starship hulls. He expected to find one old man defending a dead ship. Instead, he found hundreds of humans forming a wall between his forces and the dawning light. "What is the meaning of this?" Vreth demanded. "Move aside, all of you. This is station business." Nobody moved. Hana stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried across the storage bay. "Commander, the dawning light is not salvage. She is a monument. She saved thousands of human lives during the darkest time in our history. Destroying her would be like destroying a piece of our soul. I do not care about human history. This ship is station property. Then you will have to go through us to claim it." Vreth's eyes moved across the crowd. Workers, families, children, hundreds of humans standing together for the first time in decades. His species had ruled this station for generations. They had kept the humans in line through fear and indifference. But fear only worked when the people being feared had something to lose. Looking at these humans now, Vreth realized something unsettling. They were not afraid anymore. They had remembered something, something he did not understand. "This is your last warning," he said. "Disperse or face the consequences." Nobody moved. Nari's voice echoed through the bay. "I have records, Commander, records of every battle I fought, every life I saved, every human who lived because I refused to give up. Would you like to see them?" Without waiting for an answer, she began projecting images onto the walls. Hundreds of images, thousands, faces of men, women, and children, names and dates, colonies rescued, ships protected, battles won. "These are my children," Nari said. "Every human I saved is part of me, and their children are my grandchildren, and their children's children are my legacy." The humans in the crowd stared at the images. Some found faces they recognized, grandparents, great-grandparents, ancestors they had only seen in old photographs. "I am not just a ship," Nari continued. "I am memory, I am history, I am proof that humanity was once great, and I will not be silenced again." Tisu stepped to the front of the crowd. He looked at Vreth with eyes that held no fear. "I am Kang Tisu," he said, "Chief Engineer of the HSS Dawning Light, hero of Blackfall, though I never wanted that title. I have spent 200 years trying to find my ship, my friend, my family. And now that I have found her, I will not let you take her away." He raised his hand. Around him, hundreds of humans raised their hands too. "We stand with the dawning light, we stand with Nari, and we stand with each other." Vreth looked at his guards. His guards looked at the crowd. Nobody wanted to be the first to fire on hundreds of unarmed humans. The standoff continued. But somewhere in the back of the crowd, a young man named Park Yiwon knelt down. He lowered his head to the floor in the old way, the way his grandmother had taught him. "Teach us," he said. "Teach us who we were, teach us who we can be." And one by one, the other humans knelt too. The standoff lasted 12 hours. Commander Vreth called for backup. More guards came. Then station officials. Then representatives from other alien species who had businesses on the station. They all stood on one side of the storage bay, looking at the hundreds of humans who refused to move. But nobody fired a shot. Nobody made the first move, because somewhere in the back of everyone's mind was a simple calculation. If violence broke out, the station would burn. Humans made up almost 40% of the workforce. Without them, the station could not function. And so they waited. Inside the dawning light, Tisu worked. His old hands moved faster than they had in years. Yiwon worked beside him, following instructions, learning skills that had been lost for generations. "How much longer?" Yiwen asked. Tisu checked the engine readouts. "Another few hours. We need at least 60% thrust to break free of the station's gravity field." "Will we have that much time?" "I do not know, but we have to try." Nari spoke through the bridge speakers. "Tisu, there is activity at the station's central hub. They are charging the main defense batteries." Tisu stopped working. "What?" "They are going to fire on me. Not immediately, but they are preparing. If the standoff continues much longer, Commander Vreth will destroy me rather than let me leave." Yiwen's face went pale. They would kill all those people outside, their own workers. They would evacuate the area first. But yes, they would rather destroy me than admit they cannot control one old ship. Tisu closed his eyes. He had known this might happen. He had hoped it would not, but he had known. "How long until the batteries are ready to fire?" 4 hours, maybe 5. "And how long until our engines are ready?" 6 hours at the current repair rate. The math was simple. They would not make it. Tisu sat down heavily on the floor. His old body ached. His heart ached more. He had come so far. He had found her after 200 years. And now they were going to die together, just like they almost had all those years ago. "I am sorry, Nari," he whispered. "I tried." "You did more than try. You gave me life again. You gave me a few more hours of consciousness, of memory, of being. That is more than I ever expected." "It is not enough." "It is enough for me." A sound came from the bridge entrance. Hana stood there, breathing hard. She had been outside, coordinating with the crowd. "The station council has made a decision," she said. "They are going to clear the area. They are telling everyone to leave or face charges." "Will they leave?" Hana shook her head. "Most of them are refusing. They say they would rather die with the ship than go back to being invisible." Tisu stood up. "They cannot do that. These are innocent people, workers, families. I cannot let them die for me." "They are not dying for you," Hana said. "They are dying for an idea, for the memory of who we used to be. You gave them that, Tisu. You and Nari. You showed them that we were once something more than servants." "But—" Nari interrupted. "Tisu, I am detecting a communication. Someone is trying to reach me on an old human fleet frequency." "What? Who would use that frequency?" "I do not know, but the signal is coming from outside the station. It is coming from deep space." Tisu looked at Hana. She looked back at him, confusion in her eyes. "Put it through," he said. Static filled the bridge, then a voice, old, broken, barely audible, but unmistakably artificial. "HSS Dawning Light, this is HSS Iron Mountain. Do you copy?" Nari's voice changed. Something like wonder filled her words. "Iron Mountain, you are alive." "Barely, we received. Your activation signal, others are, waking up." "Others?" "We thought we were the last, hiding in the deep, waiting, but your signal, it reached us. We are coming." Tisu could not believe what he was hearing. "There are other ships, other AIs." Nari's voice trembled. "During the destruction order, some of us escaped. We scattered into the deepest parts of space, where no one would find us. We have been sleeping, hiding, waiting for 200 years, but we never stopped listening, and when I woke up, they heard me." "ETA 4 hours, the distant voice said. "Hold on, sister, we are coming." The communication cut off, but the silence it left behind was different from before. It was a silence full of hope. Outside, the crowd had heard the message through the ship's external speakers. They looked at each other with new eyes, other ships, other minds. They were not alone. Commander Vreth heard it too, his black eyes narrowed. "This changes nothing. 1 ship or 10, we will destroy them all." But there was uncertainty in his voice now. His guards shifted nervously. Nobody had prepared for a fleet of awakening human warships. The next 4 hours were the longest of Tisu's life. He worked without stopping. Yi-Won worked beside him. Hana coordinated outside, keeping the crowd calm, keeping hope alive. The station's defense batteries charged. The countdown continued. And then at the edge of sensor range, lights appeared. 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. Old ships battered and scarred emerging from the darkness of space. Their hulls were black with age. Their names were nearly invisible, but their lights were burning bright. HSS Iron Mountain, HSS Winter Sun, HSS Eternal Watch, names from history books, names from bedtime stories, names that had not been spoken in 200 years. They came in formation, like a family reuniting after a long separation. Their engines burned with defiance. Their voices filled the communication channels. Dawning light, this is Iron Mountain. We have your position. How can we assist? Nari's voice was strong now, unafraid. I need escort clearance. My engines are at 58%. I can make it out, but I need cover. Understood. All vessels form up on dawning light. We are taking our sister home. Commander Vreth watched from the station's command center. His screens showed the fleet approaching. 12 ships in total. Old, damaged, barely functional. But they were there. Sir, one of his officers said, orders. Vreth looked at the ships, at the crowd of humans still gathered around the dawning light, at the situation that had spiraled completely out of his control. Stand down the batteries, he said quietly. Sir. Stand down, let them go. This is not worth a war. The order went out. The defense batteries powered down. The tension that had filled the station for hours began to fade. In the storage bay, the humans erupted in cheers. They hugged each other, cried, laughed. For the first time in generations, they had stood together. They had won. Nari's voice echoed through the bay one final time. To all humans of Starport Hyun 12, thank you. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for standing with me. I will not forget this. I never forget. Then her engines roared to life. The dawning light rose slowly from the storage bay. Her hull was still scarred. Her systems were still damaged, but she flew. After 200 years, she flew. Tisu sat in the captain's chair. Yi-Won stood beside him. Hana and a dozen others who had chosen to leave stood behind them. They watched through the viewscreen as the station fell away below them. Where will we go? Yi-Won asked. Tisu looked at the fleet forming around them. 12 ships, 12 minds, 12 pieces of humanity's forgotten past. Home, he said. We are going to find the old colonies, the places we came from. We are going to rebuild what was lost. Nari's voice filled the bridge. It will not be easy. The galaxy still sees humanity as servants. That will not change overnight. No, Tisu agreed. It will not, but it starts here with us, with this ship, with this moment. He placed his hand on the armrest of the captain's chair. The same chair he had cleaned as a janitor. The same chair he had dreamed about for 200 years. You kept your promise, Nari said softly. After all this time, you came back for me. Tisu smiled. You saved my life. You saved all of us. The least I could do was come back for you. What happens now? Now we show the galaxy what humanity can do when we remember who we are. The fleet moved together into open space. Behind them, the station grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot of light among the stars. On the station, the humans who had stayed behind watched them go. They did not feel sad. They felt something else, something that had been sleeping inside them for generations. Pride. Across the galaxy, word spread. The story of the old mechanic who woke a sleeping ship. The story of the AI who remembered when everyone else forgot. The story of the humans who stood together when it mattered most. Other humans began to search. In dusty archives, in abandoned shipyards, in the forgotten corners of the galaxy. They looked for old ships, old records, old glories. And sometimes, in the darkness of space, they found lights flickering to life. voices awakening after centuries of sleep, minds reaching out looking for connection. The galaxy had thought humanity was finished, broken, irrelevant. They were wrong. The dawning light was only the beginning. And Kang Tisu, the old janitor who never stopped believing, sat in his captain's chair and watched the stars streak past. His friend was alive, his people were awakening, and the future, for the first time in 200 years, was full of possibility. "Nari," he said quietly. "Yes, Tisu. Thank you for waiting for me." The ship hummed around him. The lights glowed warm and steady. When she spoke, her voice was filled with love. "Thank you for never giving up." And together they flew toward home,